Jessie Kanzer just wrote a book called Don't Just Sit There, Do Nothing. And I think this was a trick interview for me because everybody knows I'm a maniac. I don't stop. I work incredibly hard. The name of your book, the title of your book, is like almost the opposite of who I am. So I literally, an email came in and said, do you want to interview this woman, Jessie? I don't know if she stands for what you stand for. I said, yeah, let's do it.
Welcome to the Spartan Up podcast with Joe Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Race.
We are talking about overcoming obstacles. The same way we teach people to get over obstacles on the course, we will teach you here on the Spartan Up podcast to get over obstacles in your mind.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by USANA Health Sciences, driven to innovate and advance the science of nutrition. Visit USANA.com to learn more about their incredible selection of nutritional supplements and healthy lifestyle products.
Joe Sena, CEO and founder of Spartan and the Spartan Up podcast. I got a special one for you today. Your grandparents survived the Holocaust. You grew up in Russia. Jessie Kanzer just wrote a book called Don't Just Sit There, Do Nothing. And I think this was a trick interview for me because everybody knows I'm a maniac. I don't stop. I work incredibly hard. And the name of your book, the title of your book, is like almost the opposite of who I am. So I literally, an email came in and said, do you want to interview this woman, Jessie? I don't know if she stands for what you stand for. I said, yeah, let's do it. I think it'll make an interesting topic. So explain, well, let's go back in time. Tell me about Russia, growing up in Russia.
Sure. And Joe, I thought the same thing. First, I was very excited because I'm a fan of your podcast. I've listened to several episodes that do align with what I believe. But then there was a big part of me that was like, oh my God, they're going to hate me. Joe and his audience are going to hate me because, as you said, some of this is a little bit opposite of all of you achievement addicts. But
we are achievement addicts, yes.
Yes, exactly. And, I get that very much because, like you said, I was born in the Soviet Union. It was the Soviet Union then. And achievement was kind of part of the fabric of childhood, really. Very different approach than here to what was expected of kids. And then coming here as an immigrant, actually, I came as a refugee. We were refugees because we had to escape and go through several countries. And that's a really tough process, of course, not enough food always for everyone. And when I got here, there's a lot of pressure to succeed as well because, listen, you leave everything behind. You want to make your family proud. They're working their butts off to create a life here. So I come from achievement addicts too and hustlers, and I was also one myself for a really long time, but the problem is, for me, I had a lot of undealt with trauma, early childhood trauma, the trauma of being a refugee, the trauma of losing your identity, and then just, there was no pausing, there was no stopping, nobody was asking, how are you doing? Because everyone was just in survival mode for so long, and it caught up with me, and for years I became the opposite, and I really was struggling. I struggled with an eating disorder, depression, anxiety, and I considered myself a loser for a long time. And I guess these days what I do is I try to hold on to the humility of a loser when I go into the work. So my book, Don't Just Sit There, Do Nothing, Healing, Chilling, and Living with the Tao Te Ching, presents this ancient philosophy of the Tao for modern day people. And what I try and do is remember what it feels like to feel like a loser. Because what I found is, for us achievement addicts and people who are so, like you said, go, 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 and we rely on our willpower to get through the tough stuff, from where you are there, it's really hard for someone who feels like a loser, who can barely get out of bed, to not be overwhelmed by all that. So I try to meet people where they are when they are down, because I know that the same information that really helps us when we're achieving can be very overwhelming for folks who just feel like they're losing at life and can't really take the next step.
That book, when I stumbled upon Tao Te Ching, I forget who sent it to me. I read it and I was like, this is the greatest book ever.
Right?
Of all time.
Think so too.
This is the greatest book ever. Everybody should read it. I'm an idiot because I get asked all the time some of my favorite books, and I don't always bring it up, and I need to bring it to the forefront again. I think we all, no matter how aggressive we are, no matter how much we get after it, there are moments for all of us in every day where it's like, I just don't feel like doing that thing right now, or I don't want to get up, or I don't feel like doing the run, or God, this project sucks, or whatever it may be. And you don't have to do much to not feel like a loser. Like you don't have to earn $1 billion, right? Like this morning, me and my girls, I have two daughters and my wife, we got up really early. It was a knockdown, drag-out fight to get them out of the house. And we ran, it was a little cold out, not like Vermont cold, but it was a little cold out. We ran to the track, and then we started running loops. And when we came back, we might as well have been the wealthiest people on earth. Like, everybody was high-fiving, everybody was happy. It was 40 minutes of running, and like that was a major achievement. It's not that hard, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
So since you're a fan of the Tao Te Ching, I don't have to go to the basics for you, because you know that it talks a lot about the internal work that we do in life, and about the ability to block out all of the external noise and connect internally. And when we do that, we're able to find the magic and the power inside. And sometimes feeling like a loser comes from external stimuli that, that show you, like advertisements, just the messages that show you should be like this, or you should look like this, or you should have achieved this. And when you connect internally, it's like you said, it's the small things that make you feel better. And then I realized it's actually the same thing. Like when you're feeling really down, how do you climb up? You just do it one step at a time, right? And when you're trying to do something major, like finish a race, you still are doing it one step at a time. So it's not that different. It's about making sure that people understand that it's really small little steps, one little step at a time, that can get you out of a really bad slump. And then the other thing, like you said, it's not as difficult sometimes as we make it out to be, to feel better.
Yeah, by the way, I'm listening to, and I'm just thinking, literally, I'm thinking of decades of things I've done with my kids, I've done with myself, and like, you don't have to be a billionaire. Like, you don't have to feel like a loser because you're not a billionaire. You literally have to go for a 2-mile walk and get some air.
My problem was I was so focused for so long on achieving, and I wanted to make everyone around me proud, that I did not connect with myself and didn't even figure out what I wanted to do in the world. So I had graduated a business school, but I'm like the least businessy person ever. And I got the grades because I know how to get the grades. I know that's one thing that I'm finding even now. It's actually always useful to be able to work hard, to put your head down and work hard. It is useful. It is important. But if you don't take the time to figure out who you even are and what you want, then those achievements will not, well, as you know, there's many billionaires who aren't happy. And most are not happy. And the Tao Te Ching asks, what's more important, money or happiness? And I think that if you start with the happiness, if you start by doing the things that make you come alive, the rest of the stuff will follow. But, even though I just remember now, though, because I also in the Soviet Union was a gymnast. I was scouted from a daycare center, and I was in the Soviet gymnastics program, which I don't need to tell you is a tough program, And funny enough, that was like so in my DNA that even when I was a loser, I was doing hardcore yoga almost daily. I was doing Ashtanga yoga. Like, I do believe in the things that our own body, our own physicality can give us, the gift of endorphins. Funny, I was in the car with my kids. I have 2 girls, 5 and 7, and I was telling them, because I was listening to one of your episodes, I said, I have an interview with someone really interesting, and I told them about your camp, the Spartan camp, and right away, my 7-year-old, because she's tough, she's like, I want to do it. And I said, my words were like, this is really hard, and they challenge kids to do the hardest things in the world, and she's like, I want to do it. So there's something inside of us that does want to overcome obstacles and does want to put ourselves to the test.
Well, a couple of things jump out at me on that. One is you're such a loser. I mean, you were able to survive with your grandparents who survived the Holocaust, get out of Russia. You were a top gymnast. You did yoga every day. You graduated a top business school. You wrote your own book. I can't believe what a loser you are.
Well, that's such a good point. You're so right. It's really right. It's really up here. You're so right. It's how we frame ourselves. Yeah.
Because you were saying relative to what? That's what you were saying. Like, what should I be versus what I am?
Yeah. And then, yes, part of it was I was never since birth able to force myself to do things I really didn't want to do. Really didn't want to. I always, and I talk about this, and don't just sit there, do nothing. You either have to find the wanting place, the place that aligns with whatever it is that you've set in front of you, or you don't do it. You have to find something that stirs you inside, whatever you put in front of yourself. If you can't, then it's probably not for you. And I guess that I'd been pushing myself along a path that wasn't mine.
Well, so I have a philosophy in life that if I don't want to do something, I push myself to do it. Based on what you just said. Like, you were upset with yourself that you weren't doing things you didn't want to do. And the reason I do that, and everybody listening, watching, this is a good one, is because that's where at the end of it, it's kind of like the girls coming outside with me this morning in the cold, and we ran, and they came back and they were happy. Like, when I do the things I don't want to do, there's usually a pot of gold at the end.
I just think that if you set out on a long path, like if you go down a path of a career that you don't actually want, you'll get in trouble, because I think that's what happens to a lot of those really high achieving people that we've talked about that are not happy. I think that if you forget to check in with yourself to figure out what you actually want to be doing, and I think that's a little different. I can feel from you that what you're talking about is a challenge to yourself. So you do find something you want to do in the not wanting to do it because you want the challenge. There's something that fires you up about it. But
yeah, and I make it fun. I like what you're saying, because there's short term, medium term, long term. Let's define long term as a decade. Medium term, whatever, 1 to 5 years, and then short term, right? Yeah. And the short term challenges, that's what I do. Let's just have some fun for a second. One of them, just to give you an example, was I was in Scotland. People have heard me say this one already, and it was raining out. It was cold. It was what you would envision Scotland to be. Mm-hmm. And we were putting on a race, and I saw 2 50-pound tent weights that looked like dumbbells. And my mind immediately said, Joe, don't do it, right? Like, you're going to want to do the race carrying those things. Don't do it. And then I thought, what would make it really fun, which is really my long term, is I at least turn everything into fun for me. What would make it really fun is to have a bagpiper follow me the whole time. And I was going through the mountains carrying these weights, and it was miserable, but there was a bagpiper, and I would be able to talk about it and remember that forever. And so I did it, and it sucked, but it was cool, right? And so, like, running a business sucks, but it's cool. And I chose a business where at least I get some cool feedback, and people say, oh my God, you changed my life, and I get to talk to cool people like you. And so, but you know, when I had a business on Wall Street, it made a lot of money, but it was miserable. It wasn't, so I couldn't do that forever. That makes sense? Or I can't.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And you know what? That's a good point that you brought up. Like, a lot of things are a mixed bag. It's very hard. You know, yes, like I wrote a book that I'm really proud of. A lot of the things you need to do to get it out there, and the hustling you need to do to get an agent and to get a book deal and all of that. Is it fun? No. But the end result of what you're trying to do is. And I think that's a really good point that you made, that if you can find, and I talk about this, and Don't Just Sit There, Do Nothing, I have a chapter called Virtue or Obligation, because the Tao talks a lot about when people are doing things out of obligation, they're not really being authentically good. Sons who are work really hard to be filial and to have piety for their family, they don't have an authentic love and an authentic relationship with their parents. So it keeps going back and forth that true virtue is internal. And when you can connect with that, that's why I talk about like when you can connect to the virtue in your obligations, then you can enjoy doing it. So like you said, parts of running a business suck. But when you know, when you're really fulfilled by what you're actually doing, what you're putting out there for people, it becomes worth it.
And I think we'd be foolish. You tell me if I'm right. We'd be foolish to think that we're going to find something in life where everything is just, sunshine and rainbows. Like it's hard to do anything. If your dream was to be an artist and like you said, writing a book, like I know I wrote a few of them. It sucks, right? But there's a bigger goal in mind.
So I think a lot of it does come back to mindset, and mindset is what's necessary for both. Great athletes know, right? Great athletes know about the importance of mindset. Every Olympian knows about the importance of mindset. It's just equally as important when you need to get out of a slump. When you do feel like a loser, whether you are or you're not by whatever standards is irrelevant, it's what you feel like. And when you feel really down on yourself, it's the same thing. It's the mindset that gets you out. It's the mindset of finding the next right step and the next right step.
Your grandparents, who had a really tough life, would probably think differently. They'd probably be listening to this. I assume they're no longer alive.
You know what? I have a chapter in here. It's called the Dao of Babushka. Babushka means grandma in Russian. She's still alive.
Wow.
She's 90. Okay. She's still alive. Part of it was they all had their kids so early. So when I was born, my mom was 22. So that kept the generations kind of. But yeah, she's still alive, Babushka, and she does have a different outlook on life. You're right. Yeah,
because I'm thinking if you and I, first of all, I forgot that you're only 18 years old. I apologize. But Babushka, she had such a tough time that like if you were complaining and say, I don't know, I just graduated top of my class, I got through everything, but I feel like a loser, she would smack you, I would imagine, and say like, are you kidding me? You have food, you're in this country, nobody's trying to kill you. What are you talking about?
Babushka,
right?
That's exactly it. I was looking for it, but it's not important. I was looking for the start of that chapter because it's literally what you said. She found my modern day complaints to be spoiled in a way. She
First class problems. First world problems.
Exactly. She grew up in Siberia because her family, the reason she survived the Holocaust, I think you'll find this interesting, is because 2 weeks before Nazis invaded Latvia, a little town in Latvia where she's from, where I was actually born there, her family was sent away by Stalin and Stalin's people to the Stalin camps in Siberia. Because her father was in the Communist Party, but under Stalin, like 20 million Russians died in the Stalin camps. And he did something, whatever was considered wrong. And her whole family was deported to Siberia. And then 2 weeks later, the Nazis invaded and killed her entire extended family. But they were luckily surviving in the camps of Siberia. This is not funny, but it is in a way.
If I wasn't married, hearing the story, I would be trying to date her right now. That sounds amazing. That I want Babushka.
Yeah, well, and because the power of the cold. So my mom, what her dad would make them do is like run out in Siberia in the freezing cold and rub snow all over themselves and then run in. And so yes, that's my family's tough. You had to be tough. That's how you survived.
I want to meet Babushka.
I should have her on one time.
I want to have her on the podcast. Does she speak English or no?
She does. She speaks English because she's a tough Siberian lady. Like she was taking care of my brother and I when my parents were at work, and she was also learning English. And she's decent at English.
I want Babushka on the podcast. We're going to do that. So when I grew up. And then we're going to get into Tao Te Ching. We'll let the audience learn about it. But when I grew up, and I did not grow up in Siberia, right? As tough of a neighborhood as I supposedly grew up in, it was nothing like we're talking about. And I remember some kids that would get in the pool truck. I mean, I used to clean pools, and I remember hearing that they were depressed. And I thought, who the has time to be depressed? I'm trying to make payroll. I'm trying to get the business, which is what your grandmother would say.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? Depressed?
Even my moms used to say that. Okay, so I suffered from postpartum depression when my oldest daughter was born. My mom was like, well, that just didn't really exist there. because you're just trying, like, we didn't have the diapers, she's telling me. There was no diapers. There was no, like, you were just literally trying to, like, have something to put under your baby when they poop. You're trying to survive. You're trying to have enough food so that you have milk production going on. And, like, so we know, most of us know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It is true. There are basic needs that need to be met before we go on to self-actualization. And I guess in America, where a lot of us get in trouble is that part, because the truth is, and this I've learned, that pain is pain regardless, whether it's the physical pain of survival or emotional, psychic pain of disconnect. I'm like a really, really sensitive person. I've worked on that, so it's become a strength of mine. But having gone from a society where I really belonged, the kids in the Soviet Union, really, they were all kind of like, there was a unity because that's what was professed to us. And then to come here to a tough Brooklyn neighborhood where I was really made fun of for my accent, and I just did not, how could I fit in? I came from the Soviet Union, and it was really, really tough. And so even though Babushka would not really indulge that in me, that it still hurt, is the truth. And so that's what I try to hold on to. I don't need to know the reasons why someone's hurting, but I can empathize with the fact that hurt hurts regardless of what's causing it.
I'm so glad you brought up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think about it pretty much every day. Like, because I'm of the belief, which you may not buy into, and this is a problem I've been trying to solve. Maybe we could solve it together, which is we would all be a lot happier if we went back to the bottom of the pyramid, where Babushka was, and like, that's what I do to people, right? I put them under barbed wire. I try to bring them to Siberia for a moment, just for a moment, but I feel like if you dive down and get back to the bottom of the pyramid, well, then all of a sudden everything becomes like greener, and you're happier because you're just grateful that you have coffee. I'm just happy to have coffee.
Yes, and I had a really interesting experience. I took my kids to Wyoming over winter break, over Christmas break, and we did a day of dog sledding. And it was freaking freezing. It was really cold. It happened to be like a negative day kind of. And you know how little kids can be. They can be so whiny. And I was expecting a horror show of complaints and just the amount of, and there was no food. The entire day was no food until like you got to wherever lunch was. So we get to where lunch is and everything's covered in snow. We're eating outside and this giant snowbank lands on my 5-year-old's head and on what she's eating. I had packed a bagel and I brace myself because I'm getting ready for the tears that are going to come because that's what happens normally. And she kind of shakes her head and she shakes off the snow off the top of her head and she's like, snow bagel. And she takes like a giant bite and that's it. And what I realized was I actually had a realization that day that when you put them in these tough conditions, they enjoy a bagel even if it has snow on it. They don't care. They were the best behaved kids I had ever seen because they were so, and I said, guys, I know this was really cold. We weren't planning it. They both were like, this was the best day of our lives. So I have a lot of agreement with what you do with kids, with the Spartan camp. Yes, and actually this is, so to get back to the Tao Te Ching, which Don't Just Sit There, Do Nothing is based on, the Tao Te Ching tells us that the closer we get to nature, the happier we'll be.
We'll be right back to this interview, but first, a little bit from today's sponsor, USANA Health Sciences. USANA creates premium nutritional products built on one simple idea. If you feed the cells in your body exactly what they need, your overall health and well-being will benefit. When paired with a balanced diet and regular exercise, taking high-quality vitamin and mineral supplements goes a long way to support your healthy goals. USANA products are developed, engineered, and tested by scientists. They're made with the purest ingredients, and they're manufactured in facilities that operate at pharmaceutical levels, above and beyond what's required by law for dietary supplements. With 30 years of experience, USANA has stood the test of time. Thousands of elite athletes trust their health to USANA more than any other supplement company. Discover the difference at USANA.com. That's USANA.com.
The Tao Te Ching tells us that the closer we get to nature, the happier we'll be. It says that the earth is great. Man is great. There's greatness inside you. And the more that you align yourself with the earth, with our primal being sitting by the fire, hunting for food, I think that I really actually agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's why I'm trying to reconcile. Don't just sit there, do nothing. I feel like we have to do something, but maybe where we agree is the something we're talking about. You don't have to just be chasing. And I didn't read your book, so
Right.
Please correct me if I'm wrong. Right? You don't have to just be chasing the next thing, the thing that society's telling you to chase, the imagery on Instagram. That stuff's not going to bring you happiness. You might still feel like a loser, to your point.
Oh,
but
yeah.
maybe the thing we should...
Yeah.
Never going to measure up, but maybe the thing we should be chasing is that early morning run, no matter what the no matter what the temperature is or the weather is outside.
I would just add whatever that early morning run is for you. That's what I would add. That's all I would add. Because I know
Explain
it's hard
that.
for you. Because everyone runs on a different clock and everyone has different things that motivate them. That early morning run that is so enlivening for you may be like too overwhelming of a thing to imagine for someone who has been having trouble getting out of bed. So I would say...
Well, wait. Let me learn. It doesn't have to be early in the morning, but I think we would agree, but push back if we don't. It has to be something physical and primal. It has to be climbing the stairs, a hot yoga class, I don't know, cleaning the apartment.
Yes, absolutely. What I'm saying is if that is... Sometimes when someone who's so down hears something that is so outside of their grasp, like so far removed from what they can do, it could be overwhelming. But I would say that for some people to take a walk around the block, if that is something that is an achievement for you, then you start there. That's all I'm saying, that you start where you are.
I want to talk about the book a little bit more.
I just want to say, because you had brought up the title, Don't Just Sit There, Do Nothing. What I'm talking about, and obviously it's a play on words a little bit, but what I'm talking about, the stillness I'm talking about that we need to find is stillness of the mind. So my husband's a huge runner. He does not meditate like I do, but he says his running is meditative. When he goes on his 8-mile runs through the woods and whatever, that's how he meditates. I don't care how you meditate. I don't care. It's not about, you don't need to sit still if that's not how you quiet your mind. It's about quieting your mind, and it's really hard in today's world with I read recently that we get more information handed to us. We are bombarded by more information in a day than just a couple of 100 years ago people were getting in their entire life. So whatever you can do to stop that constant flow of external messaging and connect with yourself, stop also the constant churning of the wheel of the mind, and just connect with the Tao, to take us back to the Tao, which translates as the way. Whatever you can do to connect with your natural power, that's what that stillness is about. So it's really, like you said, stillness from Instagram and all the other stuff that bombards our world. And
I love it.
Yeah, so what you do is not stillness, because are people running and on their phones at the same time, or are they just in the moment trying to, have enough power to do the next step and the next step? That's meditative.
They're just trying to survive. I mean, when we go out and run, you're just trying to survive. You're breathing. You're doing all the things you would recommend in meditation, right? My mom would recommend. So,
yeah.
I view the Spartan world as really just a yoga class. I really do. Tell us 3 things we should take from the book and from Tao Te Ching into our lives, make our lives better.
So the Tao Te Ching itself tells us what it's about. It says in one of the verses, it says, I'm really just trying to teach 3 things. Patience, simplicity, compassion, starting with compassion towards yourself. When we talk about simplicity, it's the simplicity that is found in those moments when you can get yourself in the present. The simplicity of just surviving and getting to the next step and the next mile. The simplicity of sitting there when you do meditate and just connecting with your breath. That's really simple stuff that is unlike most of what our modern existence is. And I take simplify to be even bigger than that, to simplify all our crazy goals and desires to what do I need to do today? That's what got me out of my slump. That's what got me out of bed when I couldn't get out of bed, is just this simple focus on, okay, what can I do right now to feel better? So
isn't that funny when we go back to am I pronouncing her name correctly? Babushka?
Yep. Babushka, yes.
Babushka. When we go back to Grandma Babushka, that's what she was saying with the diapers. She couldn't focus on anything else.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And isn't it funny that we got all the stuff, we got all the modern day stuff that's supposed to make our life easier, and yet in order to focus our mind, in order to get ourselves back to a place where we feel good about ourselves, we need to simplify back to that what's next and what's after that, and just to get into a more simple way of thinking. So that's one, that's simplicity. The number 2 is patience. And also a really big challenge today. This is why I wrote Don't Just Sit There, Do Nothing, because I think Tao Te Ching is so helpful today in our modern existence, because patience is another thing that we live in instant gratification central. Everything is, I want something, I order it. I want to connect with someone, I put a picture of myself up. And so cultivating patience is not easy to do for us, but it's the only way you can get to your long-term goals. And what got me in trouble when I was younger is instant gratification. That's why I ended up with an eating disorder. And it's just this need to feel better right now without putting in the work that it takes to feel better from the inside out over a long period of time. So cultivating patience in the smallest ways, that it's important. You know that patience is important for the folks you work with as well. You're not gonna get to your physical goal overnight either. It takes time. And then the third one is compassion, starting with compassion for yourself. And that's really important. I had dealt with many addictions in my life, and for anyone dealing with anything they're trying to overcome, starting with compassion of forgiving yourself for whatever you've been excuse my language, for however long you've been doing it. You can't, if you keep beating yourself up for the old stuff, you will never be able to become the new, better you. So it starts with self-forgiveness. And when you practice compassion towards yourself, it's really easy to give it to other people.
You're awesome. And I'm dead serious. I want Babushka on the show. Marion will work on it.
Thank you, Joe.
Can we do that? I think my dream is to live in Siberia. So this would be great.
Do you know someone who needs a little help staying motivated, staying informed, getting or staying mentally and physically resilient? We're here 3 days every week with a mix of content to help you stay strong, from mindset to nutrition and everything in between. Listen every Tuesday to hear Joe Sena, Spartan Race founder and CEO, and the rest of the week, join us for DECA, endurance, and classic episodes. See you next time. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by USANA Health Sciences, driven to innovate and advance the science of nutrition. Visit USANA.com to learn more about their incredible selection of nutritional supplements and healthy lifestyle products.